Welcome to Doing the Dang Thing podcast. I am your host, Jill Schmeeding, and this podcast is all about helping everyday women play big and aspire for more. On today's episode, I am going to be talking to you about Chapter 2 of The Art of Gathering. Back a few weeks ago, last month to be specific, episode 28, I talked about Chapter 1. And I'm going to briefly go through what we learned about in Chapter 1 before jumping into Chapter 2, because I think it's important to review how to create a bold, sharp purpose. That's what we were talking about on episode 28, Chapter 1, how to create a bold, sharp purpose. I'm just going to give you the 3 ingredients. Specificity. So be specific with your purpose. Be specific with the title of your gathering. Number 2, this was my favorite, Ichigo Ichie, which is a Japanese proverb, which means one meeting, one moment in time that will never happen again. One meeting, one moment in time that will never happen again. That is what every single gathering you are going to throw is going to be like, because we all are changing every single day, so no gathering will ever be the same, even when you want it to be. I mean, how many times have you been to a gathering that was exceptional and you want to replicate it? You want it to happen again and again and again, right? Because it was just so good. Doesn't work that ways. Ichigo Ichie. One meeting, one moment in time. That is what you want your gatherings to be like, though, so that people are dying to go back to your next gathering. And the third concept of creating a bold and sharp purpose is I just had it. Be specific, be unique with Ichigo Ichie. Yes, be disputable. Priya Parker does a great job of explaining this in the book, and I think it just means that you're constantly curating the best purpose that you can for your gathering. For me, the Women with Wins gathering that I am curating, my purpose is to bring women together to feel seen, heard, and celebrated. I think that's a great purpose, and it's a great starting place, but it still should be disputable so that I continue to curate the best purpose that it can be. And so she goes into that in much more detail in Chapter 1 of The Art of Gathering. That is a great overview of Chapter 1, and if you want more information, I encourage you to check out episode 28 to just hear all my fun stories and to go into further detail. This week, we're going to be talking about excluding well, so stay tuned. This episode is going to be talking about excluding well, and a couple other topics as well that she talks about in Chapter 2. But let's be honest. When was the last time, and I bet you it was just this last weekend, when was the last time you went to a gathering where you wish the host would have excluded someone? I mean, seriously. We go to those gatherings all the time where it's like there's that one person that just doesn't fit, but they felt like they had to invite them, or they do the next worst thing, which is they say the more the merrier. Now, sometimes the more the merrier does actually work, but in most cases, not so much. And Priya talks about that in the book as well. Tonight, I'm going to be going through 3 things, again, 3 digestible things, questions specifically, 3 digestible questions that you want to ask yourself the next time you're about to throw a gathering, okay? Number 1, who not only fits, but also helps fulfill the gathering's purpose? What guest fits, but also fulfills the gathering's purpose? Those are the people that you should be inviting. Who not only fits, but also fulfills the gathering's purpose, okay? Number 2, who threatens the purpose? Oof, that is a hard word to hear. Threatens the purpose of your gathering. Nobody wants to be a threat to a gathering, but believe me, they exist. Those people exist, and you have to be that host that's going to be bold, and you got to think twice about inviting those people. Number 3, who, despite being irrelevant to the purpose, do you feel obligated to invite? Oh my God. I'm going to let you just simmer that question for a second. Who, despite being irrelevant to the purpose, do you feel obligated to invite? How many people out there are thinking about their mother-in-laws, their sister-in-laws, their brother-in-laws, all the in-laws, okay? All the in-laws, let's be real. But like also just that friend that maybe you're like, I know I should invite them, but I really don't want to. They don't really jive, right? With the theme, with the purpose of the gathering. Or maybe it's like you have a spouse or a partner and they have a friend that you're like, dang, I really don't like that person, but you feel obligated to invite them. I know your minds are just flowing with thoughts and people, and it's not to be rude. It's not meant to be rude. It's meant to be, you want to be an exceptional host, right? Well, it calls for some boldness, to be able to do this. And so I would hope that you would consider these three things, these three questions, the next time you're putting together a party, specifically a gathering, right? A meaningful gathering. And I have a great story. So I just went to a party this last weekend. I went with someone that I knew really well, but I didn't know anyone else at the party. There was a Facebook invitation. This woman was clear. Oh, she was crystal clear on the theme of the party. I knew exactly what the party was about. I knew exactly when I got there, what was going to be going on. It was great. She did a great job. When I got there, so she kind of checked the chapter 1, right? She did a really good job with chapter 1. She did a great job with chapter 2 as well, because when I got there, I was sitting on the couch, kind of just visiting with people, and I overheard a conversation. 2 people were talking. They said, "Hey, is Mary coming?" And the one person goes, "I don't think Mary's invited." And the other person goes, "Oh, well, that's good because I needed to prepare for if Mary was going to be coming tonight." And I was like, dang, that host killed it. Like, she did her job as a host by not bringing someone who threatens the purpose of the gathering. And it ain't easy, and she might have some repercussions afterwards. But let's just be honest. If if Mary came and disrupted everything, then nobody has a good time. And who wants to go to those types of gatherings? Believe me, you go to one of those gatherings where the host is like, everybody's invited and no one, nothing matters. You don't want to go back to them. I promise you don't want to go back to them. So those are the 3 questions. And I don't want to overwhelm you, okay? Chapter 2 is filled with some great information, so I'm going to briefly go over a couple other things, just briefly, because I think if we're being honest, I want to give you digestible information to think about for your next gathering. And those 3 questions are probably it. And let's just be honest, excluding that's a hard price to pay to be a good host. And so I think that's just the most important thing. She goes but I'm going to just touch on this briefly here. I'm going to try to practice some brevity, which people tell me I need to get good at anyways. So she goes about size matters. Size matters. I agree. Size matters. She talked about having a group of 6 people. Okay. If you want to create intimacy and high levels of sharing and discussion through storytelling, stick to about 6 people. That is what I do with my Women with Wins currently. And it offers an amazing environment where women are open, they're vulnerable, and they're willing to share through their stories about their wins. It's awesome. Now, if I wanted to up the ante, I could go to 12 to 15 people. It's still going to build trust and intimacy, but it's good for one moderator or like one host, and it's going to offer some diverse opinions, okay? So 12 to 15, you're going to get more diversity with your opinions, obviously. If you go up to 30, it's going to feel more like a party, and 150 is going to feel more like a conference. So she goes through those numbers and she goes into depth about it. I'm not going to do that here. She also talks about location and the venue. This is really important, and I encourage you to just read the chapter on your own, because she does talk about a Jerry Seinfeld quote where Jerry talks about the room. Being a comedian, just think about this for a second. When was the last time you went to a comedy show? That room does 80% of the job. When you're in a comedy, when you're in a room where you're going to go see some comedy, that creates the ambiance of you wanting to laugh, right? It doesn't do the same if you're in a boardroom or a conference room. So the room does 80% of the job. Keep that in mind. The last thing that she talks about is the venue can and should displace your people, your guests. Displacement is simply about breaking people out of their habits. It's about waking up people from the slumber of their own routines. I have to admit, this is a concept that I haven't quite tried with my particular gatherings. You have to be kind of creative, and I'm not there yet, but one day I will be. And I encourage you, when you are putting a gathering together, to think about it. How can you break people out of their habits, waking them up out of their slumber by displacing them? But I'm not there yet. But where I am is excluding well. I do consider that as a host. I do really take that job seriously. And I know that when you're on the receiving end of it, it doesn't feel very good, but I think it's important. And I'm going to open up the whole Women with Wins gatherings to be more exclusive, to include more people, I guess I should say. But that's only when my venue, which currently is my home, that has really bad parking, when I move it to a new venue, that's when I feel like I can open it up to more people. But as of now, I'm like intimate group of 6, and I'm also just kind of curating the group and trying to figure out what works best for my Women with Wins gatherings. So that's okay too. I think the next time you have a gathering, think about like maybe just trying it out and then growing from there. We don't have to go big all the time, right? That's chapter 2 in a nutshell. Art of Gathering by Priya Parker. Highly encourage you to, if you're liking what you're hearing in part 1 and now part 2, I've got much, much more information to share with you as time goes on. But if you're just like, Jill, you're taking too long, 1 chapter per month. Yes, 1 chapter per month. I want to give you little bite-sized pieces of information. Go grab the book, read it, throw a party, play big, aspire for more. I mean, let's be honest, that's why you're listening to this podcast, right? Because you want to play big and you want to aspire for more. And that means throwing a party, throwing a gathering, being selective with who you invite. It's not easy, but it makes for a great, intimate, awesome gathering. Meaningful. I should have said meaningful. It's all about having it be meaningful. So I encourage you. Thank you so much for listening today. I really encourage you to keep playing big and aspiring for more, and keep bravely moving towards becoming your most authentic self. Take care, everyone.